So in this video, I want to talk to you about how to create a professional summary list. So you probably guys already know, or you may not already know that you have about essentially 7.4 seconds to impress your recruiters with your resume. So obviously people don't spend a lot of time on resumes because there's so many people's resumes to go through, right? Especially recruiters have a lot of resumes they need to go to figure out who's the best person, right? So based on my research, right? Based on my research and based on like me working in like marketing and communications, I realized that you can actually construct your resume in a way that you can get them to keep reading it more, right? So one of the things that I discovered is that when I was doing research on basically finding out what are the best way to write your resume, I noticed that most of those research was actually talking about how people read the first, when you look at your resume, right? They read the first paragraph first. They look at the first paragraph, what it says. So they love to see, before they even look at your experience and things like that, they read what's actually on the first, what you call the first paragraph, right? So I realized that one of the things that when we're reading, right, you will see that like using bullet points is actually one of the easiest ways. So you realize is that most of the time this paragraph is the one that actually get read most frequently and most viewed most frequently. So I realized that you can actually use this area to make it easier for you to make it easier for the recruiter to understand what you have done and what accomplishments you had and what skills you have, and you kind of feed that information right from the beginning. And obviously I wanted to go use bullet points for that is because I noticed that when I was doing research and when I was working in marketing, people like to read things in bullet points a lot more than than reading in paragraphs, right? It's just a lot more easier for your brain to process that, and therefore also make it easier for people who read it to continue reading what you have to say, right? So this is one of the things that I tell people, and obviously we had a lot of successes with this, formatting in this way, is to essentially get people to talk about their professional summary in a way that it shows it as a bullet. It's formatted in a bulleted form, and also talks about very specific things, right? So I'll talk about what are the things that I recommend that you put on your resume, so you can make it easier for your recruiters to find out what you are actually good at, right? So you can see I've identified about four bullet points here that you kind of need to think about when you're kind of doing this exercise on your resume. Okay, so one of the first things is identify how many, what were your key responsibilities that you have had over the years, right? So if you're a project manager, it could be planning for project, right? It could be scoping project. It was creating budgets for projects, right? Managing tasks, hiring team members. So all those things will be part of your responsibilities that you have. So think about some of those responsibilities you had over the years, okay? And the next thing is think about some of the processes and tools you use, things like software, things like methodologies you use, for example, agile methodology, or things like that if you're a project manager, or some in other cases, what tools did you specifically use? What software did you use? Did you use Salesforce? Did you use Microsoft Project, right? Did you use AWS, right? So there's a lot of, essentially in the modern work culture, right? We use a lot of software tools to make our work more effective, right? So start thinking about what those are first, okay? And list them out, so that way we can, you can essentially construct the right way based on the example that I will give you next on the next slide. And then think about some of the key companies you work for. If they are especially, enterprise companies that a lot of people know about, then you can kind of talk about what kind of, I worked in companies such as, Oracle and Google, right? And then kind of get their attention that way, because they know people are familiar with those companies, and they know how these companies are run, right? So many people think, sometimes you need to work in big companies and that's the only time. But what I would say is that if your company is very well established in your industry, that's good enough for you to actually state that. Okay. And the next thing is, think about some of the certifications and training or courses that you have taken or you have received over the years, right? So that you can, especially if you're working in, a tech role primarily, you want to talk about some of the certifications you have or some of the trainings you went through. It could be independently you went through, or it was sponsored by your company. It really doesn't matter, but some of those things that you have identified. So these are the kind of the 4 components that I use to construct the professional summary list. And I'll show you an example how it looks like once it's complete. Okay, so you can see here that I am essentially talking about, the first one, right? So over 10 years of experience in customer success and technical support management, right? So this is someone who worked in customer support and who has experience with a little bit of customer success, and he didn't even know that he had this much experience actually when we were doing it, because when I was looking at his profile, I saw that he had a lot of customer relationship, customer support roles over the years, that we can essentially utilize to kind of put in your professional summary list, especially if you are applying for a role like customer success or customer support or IT management or support management. Okay, so you can just say, depending on if you have maybe 3 years or 4 years, you can say over 4 years of experience in customer success, as long as it's over 4 years, right? So be honest. One of the main things that I recommend is to be as honest as you can on your resume. The reason for that is that you can then confidently talk about your resume without needing to hesitate, or without you needing to be nervous or anxious, right? So one of the main things is that work, put as, if you don't have experience, it's okay, it's understandable. You can get experience by starting your own company or own thing, right? Get that little bit of experience that you need, and you can talk about that in the resume. So I'll talk about that aspect of it, how to get more experience if you don't have experience, by starting your own company, and dwelling into the problems that companies are generally dealing in, and then getting the experience that you need. Okay. And then here in the second sentence, I also talk about some of the duties, right? That this person was having at that time. He was essentially helping and advocating for clients and guiding them to success through, IT support management. So that's one of the things, because we wrote this kind of professional summary for somebody who's getting into something called customer success manager role. And that's the way I kind of constructed this professional summary resume, right? Professional summary in the resume. Okay. And then the next one, you can see we're talking about specifically, we're not naming out any tools per se, even though there's a possibility you can definitely do that, right? So you can say over 8 years of experience providing technical support for technologies and tools, right? You can actually even say something like 8 years of experience providing technical support using tools such as Salesforce or Jira software. It really doesn't matter what the tool is. You can essentially put that providing experience, 8 years of experience providing technical support, or 8 years of 8 years of experience managing projects using software tools like Asana or Jira, right? So these are project management tools, right? So you can literally talk about what how if you had any experience using specific tools, you can talk about it here, right? And here I'm going back again to kind of illustrate another aspect that this role was specifically asking for, which was over 5 years of experience building relationship with customers and partners. So relationship building is a key factor, right, when you're working as a customer success manager. So that's kind of the way I've identified it, again, like a duty, a specific duty that they had to work on and they had to participate in. And because I saw a lot of the resumes, a lot of the job descriptions were asking for relationship building skills. That's one of the main things that I wanted to kind of put in the professional summary for him. And the next bullet point essentially talks about the certifications that he had, or what if he has certified. So he's a certified Salesforce administrator, so he has that certification, and he's also taken courses in network and cybersecurity. So I thought, you know what, that's something that we can essentially let them know that he's, you know, very knowledgeable in network and cybersecurity principles. So this is kind of the format that I recommend, right, that you use to kind of, you know, put the summary, professional summary together. You will see that you will have a, like, you know, using the, you know, bullets and using the years this way, and also talking about if you have any certification, really gives the reader to keep on reading more, right? So I would say stick around, maybe, you know, 4 to 5 bullet points. You don't need to go more than that, right? Even 3 is okay, as long as you're writing really, you know, helpful stuff for the recruiter. So make it easier for them to keep reading on, right? So that's what I have for the professional summary list, and hope you found that useful. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.